All right, guys, Seth Walder from ESPN graded all 32 NFL teams on their offseason moves, gave them a grade F through A. The Cleveland Browns, drum roll please, a B+. Not bad for our Cleveland Browns. Their biggest move, trading down from number 2 to number 5, passing on Travis Hunter, drafting Mason Graham, and collecting Jacksonville's first-round pick next season. Move he disliked the most from our Cleveland Browns was extending Myles Garrett. He writes, the Deshaun Watson era in Cleveland is almost certainly over, and the Browns entered this offseason as a rebuilding team in need of a quarterback. He liked the Browns taking cheap swings on Tevin Jenkins and Cornelius Lucas. He liked the deal that they gave to defensive tackle Malik Collins on a 2-year, $20 million deal. I agree. I think that's an underrated move. But he criticizes Myles Garrett's extension, saying they're not in a win-now mode, and they could have gotten more assets 2026, 2027, and beyond. B+ is pretty fine for me. I thought they had a solid draft. I vehemently disagree with the Myles Garrett thing. Myles Garrett is the best player this franchise have ever had, minus maybe Jim Brown. And I wasn't there to watch them, but Myles Garrett isn't just the best defensive player in football. He single-handedly wins you games. I go back to that Indianapolis Colts game, like jumping over the line. Just he is the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The most
impactful.
Most impactful, but you have to, like, the most game plan for player in the NFL when it comes to opposing teams. Myles Garrett, what he does is just so tremendous. And if you trade Myles Garrett, I know you're not in a, quote, win-now mode, but what does that say? We've seen such quick turnarounds just in the last couple of years. C.J. Stroud, I know he took a sophomore slump, but brought him to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and Jaden Daniels almost going to the Super Bowl. Like, it doesn't take much. It truly just does take a quarterback, and obviously you need pieces around. You need a good defense. The Browns' offensive line needs to stay healthy, but I disagree. I think signing Myles Garrett to that extension was the correct move for the Cleveland Browns. You still need a staple, and he's the best player in football right now. Like, the culture is one thing. I know Myles Garrett, you might question him as a leader, but when he steps in between the lines, you can't question how impactful he is.
Dude, and Ryan, here's the thing with that, right? Like, if they were to have traded Myles Garrett for 2 late first-round picks to a contender, he would have put that down as the move that he disliked the most. You know, because they would have been saying, well, you had a generational defensive end, you know, that has just won Defensive Player of the Year, like shifts the outcome of the game every time he steps foot on the field, and all you get from him is 2 late first-round picks. Like, that would have been the narrative then, so I'm not going to put too much stock into that. I will take the B+ grade, and I guess to his Myles Garrett point, I really think that, you know, there's been so much talk about the Browns are a rebuilding franchise, this, that, and the third. Like, if you look at this roster, this is not a rebuilding franchise. This is a franchise that's more so in the middle of the NFL. You know, you've got talent on this roster. The offensive line isn't that bad. There are some vets that you can lean on, and the young players look promising. The defensive line, same exact story. The defense as a whole should be in the top half of the league defensively this year. Jerry Jeudy's good. Njoku's good. You hope the rookie running back duo works. You're really just that quarterback away. And maybe it's one of these 4 dudes, but if it's not, you're sitting in a prime position next year to draft your rookie quarterback of the future that you're going to have on a 5-year deal in the first round of the NFL draft. Like, this isn't some long, drawn-out rebuild like what we went through with 1-31. I really think this year is kind of the retool year, throw some crap at the wall and see if any of it sticks. And if it doesn't, you go back to the well, and 2026, 2027 are when you could really go for it. Like, this isn't going to be some painful rebuild. I think those days are over.
I think you're totally right, Nick, too. And I think that's what Seth is missing in the article is I think when he wrote this or wrote that little excerpt or whatever about Myles, I think he's viewing it as the Browns' window of contention is in somewhere between 5 to 7 years from now. But I think you guys are totally right. Like, you have enough where you can, if you find the right quarterback, flip it around 2 years.
I think to play even a slight bit of devil's advocate to his point, even though I still think he's wrong, is if, say, we're somehow in the same spot in 2 years, then I see why you're like, we should have traded Myles and just cashed in at the time. But then if we're in the same spot in 2 years, we could just trade Myles then. It won't be a difference. Like, he'll still be a valuable asset to a contender. But I think the grade was okay. I was somewhere expecting like a C+, but I think we had a really good draft and we had some low-key signings. It'll come down to, you know, if everything else looks good and we could really just have an identity to go into the next year with to make our last moves, use our hopefully 2 really high first-round picks, and then really just move forward into the next era of the franchise.
Yeah, I thought we were around a C+ as well, Rob. I'm still looking at our wide receiver room, and, you know, little skeptical of that. But other than that, re-signing Myles Garrett was a must for us. Like, that's Myles Garrett. That's our guy. So I thought our draft was great. We'll take a B+ though.
Like, I know you can't just throw last year out the window. The results are the results. And the biggest thing to me was just the amount of mind-boggling penalties. And ultimately, that falls on Kevin Stefanski, of course. It doesn't. If that happens again, then rightfully question him. Although he's had trouble with penalties ever since he got to Cleveland. And like I said, you can't throw away the season last year, but the offensive line was not healthy, guys. Nobody knew who the hell was going to be under center half the weeks we played football. Like, when you don't know who the hell your quarterback is going to be, like game planning and all that, it's tough. And I know the same is going to be for this year. Like, is it going to be Joe Flacco? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? You're going to be benching him for these rookies. It's still going to be a shit show. But I feel like those guys that are going to be marching out, one, there's hope. When you were throwing out Deshaun Watson, there was no hope. When you were throwing out Jameis Winston, you knew what you were getting. You were getting a guy that was going to turn the ball over. And the similar thing with Joe Flacco. But I just feel like there's such a sense of just like a shower of rejuvenation to this team, just getting that whole Deshaun Watson thing behind you. You still have so many good pieces. Like, if DeJuan Jones can be your future left tackle, that's huge for this franchise. You have two young, fresh running backs to pair when you're going back to this West Coast 12-set heavy offense. I go back to when Kevin Stefanski was with Baker, and even you saw him win games with PJ Walker, and that if you can just run the football down their throats and play good defense, like, to me, that's at a bare minimum. You're going to be a middle of the pack team. And I believe in the talent, and I still believe in Kevin Stefanski. Like, this is the year you go back, and if it looks horrible, the offense is as stagnant as it was last year, then there's even more questions. I get that, but I really don't think that's going to be the case.
Ryan, you mentioned Deshaun Watson in there. I'm at the point now of the offseason where any other quarterback not named Deshaun Watson is going to be an improvement for the Browns as a whole. Yeah. How many times did we sit in the studio at Burke Lakefront Airport imploring the Browns to have a 200-yard passer? Deshaun wasn't able to do it. How many times were we ripping our hair out because the Browns offense couldn't manufacture 20 points on any given Sunday? They refused to score more than 20 points. I really think anybody outside of Deshaun Watson is going to give the Browns the best chance to win. We've spent so much time arguing who should be the week 1 starter, who will be the week 1 starter. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be addition by subtraction. The fact that it's going to be anybody other than Deshaun Watson is going to be a really good thing for this football team as a whole. Look at the defense too. The defense is a talented group. I'm not willing to say that this defense is bad or overrated because they took a small step back last year. I think the defense last year was exhausted, especially come the second half of games and the second half of season, because they were always on the field because the offense was just that inept. And you're exactly right. If things go that bad again, then we are probably having a really negative conversation about Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry and their futures in Cleveland. But the fact of the matter is, I've seen Kevin Stefanski make it work with pretty much every other quarterback other than Deshaun Watson. So there's reason for Browns fans to be optimistic heading into this year and beyond.